Howdy. I just wanted to share a few minutes of Mark Passio with you because I think he's a man who thought quite many things through. And if you know somehow about his history and stuff, it is very interesting what he has to tell. So let's give him the word.
Create and maintain a power differential between those who hold it and those who are ignorant of it. It's that simple. The knowledge of natural law and its operations constitutes what I call the most deeply occulted or hidden information that exists on this planet. You will not find any more hidden information. This is the thing that all the distractions are there for, to keep you from learning. The endless trivialities, the nonsense you hear on the news, all the video games, all the nonsense television, the sports, it's all there to keep people from understanding this. I can't get you to accept that or believe it, and I don't ask you to believe it. I'm telling you, that's what they're trying to, from my years of being inside occult traditions that are very, very dark. I'm telling you, this is what they don't want you to know from firsthand experience. How many people here today know that I was involved in the dark occult in my past? Good. Great. Okay. The powers that be want to seek to keep this information hidden from the people of the earth at all costs, because understanding this information about natural law will level the playing field and put an end to the currently entrenched systems of control that are operating on the earth. We should very clearly make a distinguishment between nescience and ignorance so that people fully understand the difference between these two concepts. How many people even have heard the term nescience? Very few. This is a word that has practically been sanitized from colloquial English, practically been sanitized from the English language. And there's a reason for that too. There's two contexts to not knowing something. The first context is nescience. Okay? Nescience comes from the Latin. The prefix ne in Latin means not or not present or absent. Okay? And then sciere in Latin means to know. It's where we get the word science from. Okay? So you put them together, and nescience, it actually, those two roots form another word, nesciere. Nesciere in Latin means not to know, to not understand. But there's a connotation to it. It means to not understand because the specific information that you may be having a desire to understand is completely absent. It is not present, and you cannot actually aggregate that information. You can't bring those pieces of grammar together to form the sentence, okay? It's not present, okay? So you don't have it at all. It's unattainable. This should be clearly delineated from ignorance. Now, nescience is not someone's fault. The information just isn't there. Okay, you can't be blamed for nescience. There is no blame in nescience. The person who is nescient is not to be blamed for being nescient. The information simply wasn't present so they could take it in and then come to understand it. Ignorance carries blame. This is another thing. People want to think in the New Age movement, there's no such thing as nobody's to blame. And that goes to that there's no cause for anything that's happening, as you'll hear a lot in the New Age circles. Okay? I very strongly put down these notions, or attempt to. Okay? There are causes and effects. There are people who are responsible for what is happening. There is blame. Blame exists. Okay? There are people who are culpable. We're going to talk about moral culpability later. So ignorance has blame attached to it and responsibility attached to it. Okay? It comes from the Latin verb ignorare in Latin. And this means not to know, just like nescience means not to know, but in a completely different connotation. The connotation of ignorance means you don't know even though necessary information is present and right there before you, because you have willfully refused or disregarded that information. Whether you've refused it because it made you feel uncomfortable, or whether you disregarded it because you felt that's not important for me to know. I don't need to know that. Or you feel you already understand something that contradicts with what's, the new thing that you're hearing or seeing. Okay? So when you willfully disregard something, okay? If I wanted to willfully disregard the gentleman sitting in the front row, he's present. I could just pretend he's not here and ignore him. That's what ignoring is. This is why I try to say to people, the impact of the word is almost lost to us, of the word ignorance, because of the way it's pronounced. I tell people, start pronouncing it ignorance. Ignorance. Then people will hear the word ignore in it, and the connotation becomes clear. It means you're ignoring it. Ignorance. Okay? That's how I like to say it now, because the connotation is clear that way. The information is there, the truth is there, and somebody wants to ignore it completely. Now, that is inexcusable, and there is blame that is attached with that. So what I ask people all the time is, do we have a nescient society, or do we have an ignorant one? Do we have an ignorant one? Is our society ensconced in nescience, or is it ensconced in ignorance?
This is, in a way, the generality of the meanings of words. I don't know how many of you have heard the word nations before that video. I have been using it sometimes. And yeah, I think I leave it here. He did the talking. I just wanted to share it with you. This is why I want to share information. Because if it got brought forward at least once, some information, whatever it will be, or ever it was, it has to be taken into account. There has been discussions in the comment sections about things, and I really try to look them up if I'm not sure of what's the thing about it. And every now and then it turns out that I I didn't really miss a point. It was just like one small part of the whole picture. And there are many parts of the whole picture. And I just try to take them all into account and try to be as objective as possible. Whatever the topic will be or is. If it's about historical events, like or political events, or religious events, or whatsoever, for me it doesn't care who did what or whatsoever. It's just that one thing which I'm fighting against is the general ignorance towards certain facts. And since I have been growing up in a Western kind of society, I am still, in a way, living in it. And I also have my own experience with the society itself, its constructs, which are based on capitalism. I have also, I would say, simultaneously gathered some more information through experience, personal experience with religion. So it turned out they can be very strongly tied together. But I also had or have today again there was some interaction going on between me and the science world. I was contacting someone about the cave which was recently found and asked if it would be possible to go there once, check it out. And the response was rather positive. And yeah, I just somehow then told them some things. I shared my paper, what I wrote and stuff, and let's see if there's an answer still. I really hope that there is an answer because he seems to be rather open minded compared to other scientists I had conversations with. And the thing is, as we go on in time, whatever NASA news or all kinds of things, they are more and more and more and more agreeing about the electric nature of nature. Despite they give him all kinds of funny names and whatsoever. But they have basically no choice anymore than slowly but steadily shift out of their old paradigm. And so, since science is somewhat a pillar of society, as is art, and if the paradigm shift in science occurs, you can be very sure there will be a paradigm shift also in society. So these are very interesting times. I really try to bring forward information, some own conclusions or whatsoever stuff about this. Why I think they somehow should be mentioned, how I think they could belong together, and why I think they could be important to know, especially in times of cosmic cycles going on in front of our eyes and all these kind of things. As is Mark Passio. You can find a quite big amount of videos of him. Unfortunately, that's not one of, like, it's not of his channel. But anyway, it was a very interesting short little video about two very important words, nescience and ignorance, which are even more important as you, or for someone who's trying to find the truth. And I'm really aware of the truth doesn't care about my feelings, opinions, or whatsoever. Just doesn't. So that's just another contribution to the whole thing. If you don't know about something, you cannot have any opinion, you cannot know how it would tie together to other things. So that's why I somehow try to provide as much information about things as possible. Just in order for others to know. I didn't knew that there is something. Yeah, now you know. So that's the thing. Never heard about the Siberian traps? Yeah, maybe it's time to read about them because they are quite something, I tell you. I wondered many, many times why no one is talking about the Siberian traps, for example. They're obviously on the track of the North Pole towards the, what is it, Malaysian Sea or something. They're on the way there. There are big rivers there. Is it Yenisei? Probably even, I don't know. There's so much stuff there. They are so special. They are so big. Everybody knows it's really cold in winter in Siberia. Everybody knows it's really hot in summer in Siberia. If you tie that into weather patterns, the electric nature of weather, it probably all of a sudden starts to make very well sense why it's so hot, why it's so cold. Why isn't there any glaciers? Yeah, if it's 50 degrees plus in summer, there's nothing like ice there anywhere. At least not on top of mountains. Yeah, maybe in winter there could be glaciers forming there, but they will melt in summer. If there's a summer. There's like so many volcanoes at the moment which are on the brink of eruption on the northern hemisphere. If there's one bigger one and one smaller one, and they happen to be in the right place in order to distribute the ash into strategical places, let's say Europe, Central Europe, or whatsoever. There are many people. Let's call them strategical places because it will affect us, humans. There might be many problems. Ash rain, acid rain, not enough sunlight, bad weather conditions, spring just doesn't come, and all these kind of things. And if it's going to happen that the Siberian traps are somehow connected, rather stable with the Kursk magnetic anomaly or whatsoever, there could emerge a huge high pressure system which would cool down a very large area. And as we have learned in the past, this is, at least for Finland, a problem. No electricity. If it's too cold, they have to shut down the electricity. There has just been in the news an hour ago or something that Olkiluoto 3, the Finnish version of the... No, I'm not saying... The newest Finnish nuclear reactor, which is one of the most expensive buildings ever built. Earliest it will be producing electricity at the end of January next year. Earliest. Maybe not even then. Let's see. And by then, I think we will have a real winter in terms of it's going to be like really cold. Now we are still in the transition phase from fall to winter. Winter patterns haven't really established yet. And there's already so much weather going on. It's really amazing to see.
I would argue
Nescience versus ignorance, the context of not knowing. Nescience, from the Latin verb nesciere, to not know because knowledge was absent or unattainable. Ignorance, from the Latin verb ignorare, to not know even though necessary information is present, because that information has been willfully refused or disregarded. There's also another word for, it's actually for people who are ignorant. I don't know if it's a scientific term, but I think it's a Greek word, so it might be scientific after all. People who are ignorant are idiots. This is just somehow a fun fact, so don't be an idiot. It's simple. I always thought that my overall, like, random medication, like knowing stuff about things, is rather good. But I always knew I don't know everything, and I will never know everything. It's just impossible. It's just no way. Most things I have no idea about. I don't know what kind of shoe size you have. What's the color of your shirt you're wearing? I don't know. And so on. Most things I will never know. But I have been, in recent years, so many times mind blown. It's amazing. Crying because of being mind blown is an experience, I tell you. The most purifying tears you can cry are the tears of being mind blown. But anyway, nescience and ignorance. Very important words. Thanks.